All right.
I like the
Well,
rumble changes.
all right. I'm starting the recording, so I'm going to do the intro real quick. All right. Thank you guys for joining in. This is the Dangerous Game podcast. I'm your host, Cosney Calduran. This week, I'm being joined by two new guests, Blitz
Hello.
and Sarcasm.
Hey,
Both of them are new to the podcasting, as this is episode 2. Anybody that was not on the first one is going to be brand new. So, this week we are going to be discussing the upcoming patch that will be released here shortly, within the next 2 days, probably. LCS and the upcoming LCS Spring Split, which will be starting here on Thursday. Will be the EU, and Friday as well as EU, and then this coming weekend is going to be NA. We're also going to be talking about the roster changes and what we predict this spring split is going to be looking like. And to start us off, I want to ask the both of you to tell me what your opinion on this new draft system coming out for Champ Select is, and how you think it's going to affect the rank scene.
Uh, well, like they're getting rid of Team Builder, which they said that they want to the new system is gonna fix all the stuff that they tried to fix with Team Builder that didn't quite work or something. And I think it's gonna be interesting because you get assigned a role in ranked. Like you don't have to. It reduces the amount of trolling where somebody just locks in top or something. And but I also think that seeing what people intend to pick might give people an ability to troll with bans.
Interesting. And what about you, Sark?
I don't think it really changes anything. I mean, people who want to troll will still troll, and people who pick regularly will still pick regularly.
So you think it's not going to have any change on Team Unity or anything, now that 3 people ban opposed to 1, and that everybody gets to choose what they kind of want to pick beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of already happened in Team Builder. Like, when you play Team Builder, nothing major really changes. Like, other than that you pick your champion before, like, you don't really get any more or less trolls. And I feel like that's the only major thing in Champ Select that happens.
I guess. I like that they're allowing you to pick between 2 roles so that it can pair you up a little faster than Team Builder does if you go into Team Builder solo. It's also going to allow you to say what you want to be. So hopefully, if you don't have full asshole trolls in the entirety of your group, they'll allow you to pick it. Also, you're going to be locking in on these roles before you go in. So it's going to tell you what role everybody is as you go into it. So if somebody trolls outside of it, I think that they're going to be doing a lot more to be punishing said people that actually attempt to troll. It's going to be easier to crack down on them.
Yeah. No, I'm with sarcasm that it won't reduce the number of trolls. I was saying that it gives the opportunity to troll in new and exciting ways.
I mean, I could see that. I mean, it's fun for some people, and every now and then I'm going to admit it's fun to troll. Do you think that they should be getting rid of Team Builder just because they're implementing this new system?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe they should have I didn't read if they were going to put a normal version rather than just have it being a ranked type of champ select. But I do think that having them both there is a little redundant.
Yeah, it does say, actually, it's the very first line. Apparently, I missed it too. It's going to be normal and ranked draft modes that are going to be changed to this.
Then yeah, there's no reason to keep them both there. It'd just be too redundant. I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they're similar enough in their purpose that I don't feel like it would be that big of a deal to
Yeah,
need team builder.
I'm with Blitz on this. I mean, I feel like the only thing that would happen is it divide the group more, which would make queues take longer. You get Dominion level queues. Since half the people will queue for Team Builder and half will queue for the new champion sword.
Yeah, I can see that.
That'd be bad because the only time I've played Dominion is when we're playing hide and seek or whatever it is.
Oh boy. So they're also nerfing a champion that I have hated since they buffed her, is Misfortune, and they're nerfing her in a way that I think is kind of interesting. So the passive ratio of her AD that she's getting is right now is zero point 0.6, scaling to 1.0 total attack damage from levels 1 to 18. They're now changing it where it starts at zero point 0.5 and still hits that maximum of 1.0. That doesn't seem all that big. They're also changing the damage on Make It Rain, which is her AoE slow thing that she drops down on people, because right now it has some insane base damage. And
Not to
so,
mention Thunderlords.
yeah, and in the patch here, it's reading that they're saying, it works really, really well with Thunderlords, and we feel like she's getting too much control over the lane. While they still want her to be the lane bully, they're trying to scale that down a bit. So the way they chose to do it is by doing a nerf to Make It Rain, which I feel is the wrong way to approach it. I feel like the base scaling on her Q should, or not scaling, but the damage on her Q. So the base damage on it needs to be reduced some. Because right now the worst thing that I have happening to me is that she hits a minion with it, it bounces to me, and there goes half of my health.
Yeah, but that's like, I mean, to quote Riot Legend Larry, who I play with every once in a while, we all play with him. It's sort of like it's her core, It's like a mechanic that's like hers, and not a whole lot of other champs. Actually, no other champs have that sort of mechanic to them. So it's like, if that doesn't do damage, then she just becomes like a Make It Rain, like dot mage or some crap like that.
Yeah, I think the only reason they're nerfing the Make It Rain is because of the APMF. It's really strong.
APMF? I have not seen a single successful APMF since this patch has come out, or since the last patch.
I played APMF support and I did the most damage in the game.
That's pretty ridiculous.
I've seen it support quite a bit, and yeah, it's just like Thunderlords with Make It Rain, and it's just proccing all the time, and it's ridiculous amounts of damage.
Yeah, I've seen it top and mid too. It's really annoying. I played against it top and it wasn't fun. But I don't know. I don't think MF is in like a bad place right now. I don't really think the nerf or any nerf was needed. And I don't feel like anything they did was too major. Because like even though the AP or they lowered the damage on the Make It Rain, I feel like the only reason Make It Rain was useful was because if you proc your Thunderlords, like a majority of the damage from it was Thunderlords, not the actual E itself.
I feel like if they did anything to nerf Make It Rain, they probably should have nerfed the slow on it a little bit. Or instead of nerfing her specifically, nerf Thunderlords the fact that it procs on AoE. Because right now, of all the passives, of all the masteries, it's the only one that's proccing on AoE. They took it away. DFT now does reduced damage from AoE. It doesn't do really anything from it. Fervor is just not used because it's pretty freaking bad. I mean, there's not any other mastery really worth using outside of using Grasp of the Undying if you're a full-on tank or a brawler, and or the Windspeaker's Blessing if you have shields or heals, and that's only as if you're a support though. So like right now I feel the mastery itself is too strong, but that's another thing they bring up in the upcoming patch. They're talking about buffing other masteries to get them to the level that Thunderlords is at, because they feel Thunderlords is not too overpowered. They feel everything else is just so underwhelming that it looks overpowered.
Yeah, I could see that, because the whole idea was that they were gonna like the keystones were supposed to like change the play style regardless of the champ you were playing, and when one of them's just like ridiculously strong comparatively, like Thunderlords is right now, you're only gonna play the champ one way. There's not the variety that Riot says they were going for.
I actually don't think DFT is that bad anymore.
It's okay, but it fits a very specific niche on what champions it actually works on, opposed to Thunderlords where it can work on almost everybody.
Actually, I think in general it does like the same amount of damage as Thunderlords now, but the biggest difference is Thunderlord's damage comes in like one burst, so like if you're fighting someone and you just see yourself get chunked, you're gonna think, I can't I probably don't win this trade now, but if you do like a fight and the damage isn't in one chunk and it's over like 4 or 5 seconds, you don't notice it as much. So you think that you can still keep trading compared to like an instant burst where it makes you like make a decision right away.
I could see that. They're also changing, so DFT is getting a buff in terms of its damage. They're making it do 0.6 bonus attack damage opposed to 0.5, and 0.25 ability opposed to 0.2. So they're barely increasing the ability power that it scales off of, and doing a decent bump on the attack damage one, which is interesting because most of the champions you're running is going to be an AP burst champion. So you're thinking that they're tailoring this maybe more towards assassins now?
Well, the Deathfire Touch, I would say, primarily goes on AP champs. At least that's what I used to see it on. It was like mainly AP champs. AD champs, you either got like Warlords or Fervor or whatever. So maybe they're just like, if they increase the ability power ratio the same amount as the AD ratio, then, you know, if you're Vagar and you have like 1000 AP and 100 AD, then the ratio might get out of hand real quick. So they're just like giving extra damage with the AD to try and make up for it, but not like without like creating a problem if somebody was to just stack a ridiculous amount of AP.
Yeah, I think they're just moving the numbers around to see what happens after the patch. I don't think they have anything specifically in mind.
They're also nerfing precision, which is the usual mastery right before somebody takes the Thunderlord's Decree, which seems like they're trying to open up, saying, hey, it's possibly better to go this tree now because, you know, we nerfed something that has been quite useful in terms of who builds Thunderlords. Because now that one's getting slightly nerfed, you have the other tree in in Ferocity that you can get either armor or magic pen from.
Yeah.
They're also changing up Death's Dance a little, which is kind of interesting. So they've noticed it's not being used that much, so they're increasing the combined cost on it just slightly. They're increasing the attack damage to 75. The healing from it is now 15% physical damage dealt opposed to 12, which is absurd to think about. And if you don't know, its other passive is damage that you're supposed to be taking all at once, so like a huge burst or something, is now being spread out as a damaging bleed. So it went from 12% of said damage to now 15% of the damage. It is now a bleed over time, which can really shut some of the assassin's burst mechanics down. So somebody similar to Zed, so opposed to all of his bursts going through at once to trigger onto his ulti, it now has a few seconds that it is spread out over. A bit of 15% of it is now spread out over a few seconds, which can literally fuck over his ult if he's not planning for it.
Okay.
Yeah, with all the AD like items that they came up with, like they sort of needed something like Death's Dance, because with the focus that like AD carries got right when they like released all the reworked ones and all the new items, they needed something to just guard against burst, because so many people are going to be playing them like just ridiculously high damage items that they were just going to get completely bursted by like any assassin.
Yeah. And Sarc, your message did not go unheard. I'm pretty sure everybody on the podcast actually is going to hear. Anybody that watches this is going to hear it too, because it makes the sound. But
It's gonna be a fun day.
yeah, between that and the fact that I muted my mic to make sure there wasn't any echo coming through, so they're going to hear that too. But no, so what we were talking about is the change that they're making to Death's Dance. They're buffing it overall because they don't see it being used enough. So the attack damage on it is being increased by 10. The healing bite is another 3% physical damage dealt. So 15% of your physical damage dealt, you now heal that much, which is pretty absurd in terms of how much you're going to be healing off of one item. Also, the damage you would be taking is being reduced, or is being 15% of it is now going to be put into that 3-second bleed that you get, opposed to 12% of it. So it's really going to help screw over being completely bursted by an assassin and actually makes it a more valuable item to have.
Yeah, I always kind of liked it, so I don't think it'll change too much.
I tried using it. I mean, I don't play ADC much. I'm not that great at it, but I did enjoy having it a couple of times. I think I played a game against the Talon, and it really did, I thought, make a difference because I was alive long enough from the bleed to get healed. It wasn't just the insta-gib. It's just like an 80s Anya.
I actually used it on Renekton a lot, and I wasn't sure how to lose a fight with it. Because it's like, if you queue with that thing, it's so hard to lose a trade.
Yeah. They're also changing Rapid Fire Cannon to 7% movement speed, along with Runan's Hurricane is going up to 7% movement speed. So it's a buff to Runan's and a slight nerf to Rapid Fire Cannon, which it seems a lot of people are picking it up because it has that 8% movement speed, more than anything else on it. That little extra damage is nice, a little extra range is nice, but 8% movement speed actually helps an ADC move around quite a bit.
I actually just pick it up for the range.
Really? I hate it because of that range.
If you play Tristana and you hit level 18, you can hit the turrets from the other side of the jungle wall, the tier 2 turrets.
I mean, yeah, it can add some ridiculous range and stuff. I just don't like the niche that it fills, because there's not that amazing of one. It's one auto attack that you get and an extremely increased range.
If you have a red buff, that can decide a fight, though.
It can also completely just nullify anything and make you feel like you can chase farther than you really can. Because if you get that, you get, like, say you have Fervor on or whatever, and you throw that auto attack at that increased distance, and now you're getting the gap closer. So now you're chasing a little bit farther, and then they turn around and cause you to be caught in a situation you shouldn't be in. Opposed to somebody that doesn't have that increased range, who's not going to hit and probably going to turn away because they can't catch them.
Yeah, but
you can just find that hit and then realize that if you chase, you'll die.
Yeah, I mean, you could think of that, but it kind of feels like it might give less experienced players a more sense of security that they can actually secure this kill before they get too far away and actually find themselves in a bad spot.
yeah, but I think a lot of champions do that on their own, like hyper carries, like Yi or Vayne or Riven. I see it a lot. It's just like their own play style makes, like, baits people into thinking they're better. And Rapid Fire Cannon, I think, I really like some of the way it's been, like, used. I've seen a lot of people do it on, like, off meta builds where they just, like, they make a build where they just front load damage on this empowered auto with their first attack, and it just does a ridiculous amount of damage, and then they follow through with slightly less damage. Like, I see it a lot, well, not a lot, but I see it on Poppy, the new Poppy with the shield one.
Mm-hmm.
It's really funny to see a Poppy with, like, statics and rapid fire cannon and just, like, front load all this damage on the shield and wreck somebody.
Yeah, I did that without Poppy in the jungle. I went Trinity and Rapid Fire Cannon. It's pretty fun.
So they are nerfing. There's a lot of changes being done to items. They're buffing some and nerfing quite a few others. One of the big ones I'm ecstatic about is that they're nerfing Frost Queen's Claim. The mana regeneration is going from 150% to 100%, so that's a decent amount so that they can actually potentially run out of mana at this point. And the slow duration also scales, so there's no more of that bullshit like a Morgana walking right up to you, hitting that slow, and you have 4 seconds of a ridiculous slow on you. It's now 2 to 5 seconds based off of how far the ghosts have to travel to get to you.
I love the note there. Ghosts get progressively more spooky as they travel.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I'm wondering if, like, they become a lot easier to see.
No. I think it's like they, like, turn into, they're like white blobs at first, and then they turn into, like, regular ghosts, and then, like, when they get to you, they're like fucking Death Eaters from Harry Potter.
That would be so great. Evolving ghosts as they travel. That'd be so cool.
No, what if that's a note saying that, like, the slow is gonna get worse the farther it travels? It's like an Ashel sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for.
because that's gonna be bullshit. Like it's like that slow is already ridiculous. If they make it worse, it's gonna be absolutely horrible.
They're changing Farsight alteration slightly. They're also changing the warding totem because late game the warding totem is just fucking garbage. And so, like, the cooldown on it right now goes from 180 seconds to 120 seconds, which means you have to wait 2 fucking minutes to get a totem that comes up and is used for a minute and a half. So there's a whole, and if you place both of them at the same time in similar areas, you still have to wait 30 seconds after the ward dies to get back another ward. They're now changing that, so it still starts with that really high cooldown, now goes down to 90 seconds, which means that it might be a more viable thing for mid laners to have, along with the nerf to Farsight alteration. Just because now the base level that you get Farsight at, it's going to be higher than it is currently. So in the late game, it's still just as good, but early on, it's not going to be as beneficial to get it in comparison to potentially, the warding totem. Still makes a sound, Sarc.
Oh.
It's perfectly fine. My icon. No, fuck you. It's my Orihen.
Yeah, I had it first, man.
Oh, fine. I'll go back to supporting a team that nobody supports anymore. No. I'll be a Vulcan fan. Don't worry.
Alright.
I like the increased bonus damage to minions and static. But I never see it anymore. I really like static shiv.
I feel like it won't change anything. I buy rapid instead of static because of the range, because of the dash.
So
if I put no bonus damage on it, I'd still buy it over static.
I now am going to be buying static over fire cannon, I think, because I'm more of a farming person. Like, I like farming better than chasing down kills. So to fit my playstyle, I think static is just the better choice for me, especially now that it's getting a buff to destroying minions. So
I think it's gonna it's really gonna carve its own niche in the sense that, for example, if you're an ADC or someone who uses crit items, and maybe your jungler in solo queue is less than proficient or something, and the enemy team gets a Baron, or they have Banner of Command or something that really helps push. I think that static shiv is gonna come in very handy.
yeah. So they are nerfing my favorite troll. Trundle is getting a nerf. His Q no longer works on towers, so, the king of backdooring is going to be nerfed slightly. His Pillar of Ice cost has been increased from 60 to 75 mana. His Subjugate cooldown has been increased to reduce the chance of him, beating up on people, and the cost has been increased. So overall, they've just made Trundle pretty much to the point that I'm never going to use him again. Just because there's too much that they did just to tell him, fuck off. Because he finally found a time where he's really good, and they said, no, we can't have this.
I don't know. I feel like it wasn't that good still. Either way. I'm kind of surprised they nerfed him.
Yeah, me too. I like Trundle as he was.
I'm
The
not...
whole, Q working on towers thing, there's a bunch of champs that can do that sort of stuff. Zin can do that. Hell, Leona can do that. She can Q a tower.
They are changing that progressively as a champion becomes considered stronger. They're reducing their abilities to do that to towers now. So, way back when, Jax was the first when they took away his W from being able to proc on towers. And then recently, it's been happening more and more. I understood that they're going to probably nerf Trundle because in games that I've been watching and games I've been playing, he has been a monster and has done a really good job of just being a person you can't do much against. But in the same manner, there's that issue that MF does very similar shit from a different role, and just because she's squishier, she's considered less of needed to be nerfed than him. So he's getting this huge overhaul nerf. She's getting a minute nerf to something that hasn't been that overpowering. It just doesn't make sense to me that they do something like this, but I feel they're just they're trying to make ADCs feel like they still have something that's really strong, because they are trying to make this a more ADC-oriented season, it seems.
Yeah, I believe that. They even gave Teemo an attack damage.
Yeah, I saw that. I just looked up and I saw that, and I was like, why?
AD Teemo's coming.
Well, then they also increased his ultimate's range, so you can throw it farther.
Yeah, there's gonna be, you're gonna proc, you're gonna throw your ult at somebody, slow them, and then it's just gonna be like Runin's ADC Teemo, just pop, 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 pop.
They did an interesting change to Rumble, which I don't know how it will affect him. He is smaller. His collision radius, so his own hitbox to collide with minions, has become smaller. His flame spitter range was increased, and the tick rate on his Which one is it? On his flame spitter, I think, still has been reduced to 0.25 or increased to 0.25 seconds from 0.5, so it goes off faster. So it seems like they're trying to make him fit back into the meta. Like they're sad that he's no longer really a part of it.
I was sad. I love Rumble. Rumble's freaking amazing.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad he's coming back. I mean, I
That-
think he can still get played, but it's not as easy as it used to be.
That being said, increasing flame spitter range, I can't like think of in my head how large 50 units is exactly, but I feel like it's gonna be, it may cause a problem top lane. Like he may just start, well, he wouldn't like destroy, but he might start getting a lot of advantages over other melee tops, just because they come up to farm and he's just sitting there with his flame spitter. I mean, he always sort of did that, but now it's even further along that he can just sit on you with his flame spitter while you're trying to farm.
And it procs faster, so you're potentially going to take all of his damage faster.
Oh yeah.
Well, you'll get hit with the Thunderlords faster.
That too. Yeah, yay.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
So they also changed Ribbon. They gave her a buff, which, I'm not happy about it at all. It's not a huge buff, but I'm not happy about it at all. The only thing they did was Runic Blade ratio was now changed from starting at 0.2 and ending at 0.5 to starting at 0.25 to 0.5. This doesn't sound like a huge buff. It really isn't, but it's still Riven. There's absolutely no reason to be touching this champion. All in all, her kit is probably one of the best in League of Legends. While it still requires a handful of skill, she's still, once you put enough time towards her, she's just a champion that is stupid ridiculous. There's not another champion that has a shield that scales with their primary damage stat. The closest to that is a tank that does it.
Any AP champion with the shield?
But it doesn't scale to the sheer ridiculousness that hers does. And it's not on as low of a cooldown as hers is. Like, Rivens right now are buying Lucidity Boots and a couple other things to get that cooldown reduction to 40 as fast as possible, to the point that when you're trying to fight her, you go into exchange with her when your abilities are up. Her shield's up. You back off. You go into exchange with her with just auto attacks. After about maybe 2-3 seconds, her shield's back up already. Like, her shield is not on a low enough cooldown to kind of give the reason why she should have such a large scaling shield.
I don't know, I never thought the shield was really that good up in the map.
Honestly, my favorite is just Salt.
I just personally hate the champion,
Yeah.
but that's probably...
really personally just hate Riven.
There's not many other champions that I hate as much as Riven. Exceptions being, primarily not including all of them, but LeBlanc. Hate the champion.
It's a fun champion.
I hate them primarily because they're two champions that have multiple dashes. Now, LeBlanc, you have to use her ulti to be able to do that second dash, but she then can teleport back to where she was to give so much outplay potential that not many other champions have. So, it's becoming harder and harder to verify why the hell would I pick an immobile champion that I love playing, that takes some mechanical knowledge and positioning knowledge, when somebody who doesn't have to have as good of a knowledge of positioning can just jump in, insta-burst me, jump back out, and then jump away. It doesn't comply why they would give so many champions such overloaded mobility in their kit.
I mean, I don't feel like Riven's mobility is that much of an issue because she has to use those skills to go in or to move away. She doesn't get both. Like, I kind of see LeBlanc's because her W lets her go back.
Riven's doesn't have to use both to go in, though. And
Well, she's either using those skills to chase you because you can kite her, or she's using them, or she'll go into you and then you kill her because she can't leave.
but so it depends what type of champion you're playing. So if I'm playing in a mobile ADC, it's hard to kite her until I have something that allows me to, get movement speed from kiting, which doesn't take that long. And, I mean, it's easier in that manner because usually those ADCs have some type of CC to put between you and her, which forces her to either flash or use all of her kit, like you said, to get in towards you. But if I'm playing either a melee champion who is forced to go up to her and fight, that's not an assassin, which isn't very often. If I was laning against her. So Trundle, my issue that I had against her as Trundle was I'd go in to trade with her, and she'd dash in with that shield and stun me. She'd be able to out-trade me even when I get a Q off on her, reducing her attack damage, but the shield blocked every bit of my damage. No matter how much I scaled damage to try to outdo that shield was always high enough to block all of my damage to trade with her. So trading with her became almost impossible unless she fucked up completely. So it was more reliant on her fucking up than me doing well. If you kind of understand that one a little bit there.
I mean, I get how you would lose the trade if you're hitting her through the shield. If you're queuing her through the shield.
And
I mean, you can just wait till the shield's down and then trade with her and then walk away.
Yeah, but once she has a couple items and she's got a decent amount of CDR, she has those dashes up all the time. And honestly, I'm not saying that she's broken mechanically. Like I said, most of my hate against Riven is just salt. My only legitimate point that I think I have against Riven is the whole thing I said earlier about her making players think they're a lot better than they are, and then trying to go in 1v5 and they just throw the game later on.
I don't know. The only thing I actually don't like Riven that much, to be honest. I don't think she's that good, but it's not because she's not good. It's more because when you get to a certain level, the only time you can really chase and actually catch people is with your flash up. And if you don't, then you just kind of sit around and rely on your team to CC them while you kill people. Or you rely on them to miss position and then you kill them. It's not really where you can just charge at them and then kill them, at least from what I can tell. Usually when I die to Riven, it's never because... Well, if I'm misplaying and I walk into her, yeah, she'll kill me, but if I'm playing correctly, the only major time that she kills me is because she flashes on me to stun me, to start her trade. Because her gap closures themselves aren't enough to actually catch up to me if I have one or two spells up.
I guess I can see that. They're also, so the person that I got these patch notes from made a comment that he thought they were nerfing Brand in this patch. They're not. They're fixing a bug where his pyroclasm would always prioritize enemy champions unless it killed a target.
Yeah,
So
I think that's kind
technically
of
that's in there.
no, it's not.
The buff that he had wasn't intended, but it was still on there.
So no. It's supposed to prioritize enemy champions, but it was at the point, so it stopped prioritizing them if it killed the target that it hit. So if it hit a person and there were minions nearby and there was another person still within range, it prioritized the minion if the first person died. So they fixed it so it now hits the other person potentially.
I thought the bug was where it was on Reddit, where if you ult someone and it bounces to a minion, it'll bounce back to you no matter what.
That
It's only supposed to bounce back to you if that minion's already got his passive on it. But if you test it, it'll bounce back to you no matter what. That's what the bug.
Oh, that might be it. The way they wrote it, very weird on the bug change itself.
Yeah, the language makes it ambiguous.
Yeah, it's the bug that Reddit found earlier in the month or whatever it happened.
They're also buffing Bard again, which I'm not happy with. While I love Bard the champion, I hate people that try to play Bard. Because most of the people I get trying to play Bard have only played him once, maybe twice, and think they're hot shit with him. and then they go in and they don't know how to use his kit properly because he's a very odd champion. Your whole premise is to trade really hard or have your ADC trade really hard. Have that heal right behind them so they can run back and get healed and sped up if they need to get away. Your job is then waiting for your ADC to be tanking, which is weird. In all, it's really weird. Then stunning them and trying to get them to attack you. So it's all about who are you going to target game, and you really have to play the positioning game correctly with him. And a lot of people don't know where to position and how to use his kit effectively enough to make Bard a effective tool for teams. Meeps now additionally hit in a 150 radius around the primary target, in addition to the cone damage. Once Bard unlocks the cone attack, Meep upgrade. So once he has the cone attack, he now hits in a 100. So it does a cone and a circle around the primary target.
Yeah, I think that's gonna. Well, I mean, it's obviously gonna buff a lot of his damage late game in a team fight when everyone's stuck in one spot. You know. It's gonna be now. The cone isn't just gonna hit whoever's behind whatever the Meep hit, but now it's gonna hit everybody around him.
Yeah.
I think it's decent. I mean, again, there's always the sort of potential for people who don't know a champion to try to play it because they got a buff. But personally, like I play Bard. Like I love it when Bard gets buffed.
I actually don't think Bard is played the way you described at all.
Okay, how do you think Bard should be played then?
His heal is trash.
His heal is kind of meh.
Yeah, you bait people into running at you and then you stun them as they charge at you, and that's about it.
Okay, I guess, that way it works. I play him where I use my ADC as bait and then I go fishing for stunning two people.
No, I make them run at me instead of my ADC.
I mean,
As they run forward.
what type of carry support are you that you would not risk your ADC's life over your own? I mean, what is this? Are you trying to be Diamond? What is this?
If I'm risking his life, I'm relying on him to do things.
This is true too. You're relying on him to bait.
That's the one mistake you're making, Nick.
That's a valid point.
You don't rely on your teammate to do something.
Valid point. Hey, if you're duoing with them, my plan works. My plan works if it's a duo, unless you're duoing with Darth No, and then he's going to flash to make sure they target you and kill you.
I play Bard in sort of like 3 major points, right? So you harass with Meeps, and you just stack Meeps and just try to get a bunch of damage on them with those, just simply auto-harassing. And then usually what I do is I usually try to... usually I only pick Bard with a relatively safe ADC, like Kate, somebody with range or easy escapes. And then you just sit there and you can roam with the jungler a lot of the time, and just, instead of a 2-man gank, it's a 3-man gank, which helps. And then with the ults, a lot of the times I just use to stall, rather than, like trying to hit a tower to keep it from aggroing on somebody. You use it to like stall dragon until the jungler gets there, or to just catch somebody running away. And that, I think, is the best use of Bard.
Well, that's the effective use of his ulti, at least. But
yeah. You also save somebody from, like, for example, Zed ult or ignites and stuff like that, but you run the risk of helping the enemy team in that sense.
Nah, I prefer ulting, that one guy that's raging at you all game for picking Bard. So you wait until he's in a situation where he's about to get away and you ulti him so the opposing team can kill him.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's only in situations where I'm feeling spiteful and I don't care if I lose.
I gotta say, one thing I love doing is you get a team of like, if you have a team with like a lot of bruisers on it, like Garen, or like champions that can only run at you. They don't have like dashes necessarily, but they're like really scary if they get on top of you. You sit there with like a couple of them out of sight, and you just tunnel them. You match go journey them on top of somebody, and that's the funniest thing.
So, now that we've talked about the patch note for a while, I feel like this is a great time to move over towards the LCS, because we were talking about it a little bit beforehand, talking about roster changes and such. And we had a decent laugh over the fact that we don't know what the fuck, Team Liquid's trying to accomplish over there with 10-man roster. But,
I'm telling you, man, it's a rolling substitution.
dude, it's gonna be so weird if you see them like, all right, here's their lineup, and then like game 2 happens, and here's the other 5 members of their roster, and
No, man, it's like Smoothie gave up first blood, fucking sub him. Like,
we're subbing his ass out. We're putting in Fabby.
yeah.
Like, okay, so obviously we're starting off with NA here. What team do you guys think is probably going to do the best?
I want to say I was talking about like the 2 teams on NA that have the hypest lineup right now, which would be, in my opinion, Immortals and TSM. I feel like TSM would do the best, but like going with my heart here, I want to say that CLG is going to do the best.
God. And what about you, Sarc?
I feel like any team can win this season. It's really hard to judge before they actually get together, because I feel like before a lot of the rosters have looked good too, and then they end up falling short.
Yeah.
Like last season's TSM during Spring Split did so good, and they had the exact same roster, and then they were like falling apart during summer, or part of it. So I feel like it just depends on how well the team meshes together, and what the meta is during the Spring Split.
I'm going to have to somewhat agree with that. I'm personally voting for Renegades to become, go Renegades, break out from the middle and go towards the top, just because I'm a huge, fanboy of Alex Hitch and Freeze and Crumbs. We were talking about it earlier, though. Of that roster, I positively hate RF Legendary, also known as just RF. I fucking hate the player. I feel like they should have tried to replace him over Maple Street, even though Maple Street didn't really want to stay there. I just feel there's so many potential picks they could have made for a top laner that fits the role better than RF, because I feel like he just doesn't fit to the team. Like in any of the games that I watched, he just seemed like an odd man out on the roster.
Personally, the only thing that I thought of when I saw Renegades was just, seeing Crumbs on there and saying, like, oh, he's like pulled a Michael Jordan. He's like, oh, I'm retiring, but no, I'm not.
He's more of pulling a Brett Favre,
Yeah.
Michael Jordan's like, I'm going to retire, pulls up, says, nah, fuck it, and goes to, like, golf and shit. And then, like, Crumbs is like, I'm going to retire. Let me join this team with all these old wash-up people and show you guys we still got what it's got. And but he wasn't the star of the team either. Like, he's never been that huge star, which I feel sad about his career, because he's always been probably a really good jungler. It's just he spent so much time on Dignitas with a crew of people that really seemed ill-prepared and not fitted to work with each other well.
I think he got a decent amount of recognition, like, later near the end during his last couple of games last season. But, yeah, I don't think he was ever like a household name or anything.
I don't think he ever retired because he didn't want to play anymore, though. He said he retired because he didn't want to play with the team anymore.
Well, he retired because, he was saying it in the nice way of, I'm going to let them find somebody that fills the slot better to fit with this team. Essentially calling everybody else shit, and he needs to get away from them as fast as possible.
No, in the video he said that there was some part of the team that wanted the game to be played a certain way, and some that didn't want or wanted to play a different way, and he was in the minority, so that's why he left.
Oh yeah, I just realized Hotshot GG is the sub for mid on CLG.
He's always been the sub. So, what was it? Was it this last spring split or the summer before that where he subbed in with the worst possible roster like you could ever imagine? It was all the wash-up people from like...
When they went
and it was so great. They go to boot camp thinking, oh, we're locked in here. We're going to Worlds, right? And then his team, because they didn't pull them back in time, he comes with CLG and friends, and they get their asses stomped every week. All he played was Zillion mid, and it was just so funny to watch all of those CLG fans thinking, we're going to Worlds finally. Dreams just get crushed before their eyes. It was pretty great.
Also, I love did Zion Spartan change his summoner name, right?
Yeah, he's Darshan now.
Okay, like I love the fact that like everybody has like you have your IGN name. And it's usually not. I mean, it can be inspired by your real name, but it's usually not that like similar. Like for example, Xmithy is freaking Jake Puchero or Puchero, whatever. Darshan, literally, that's his first name. That's it. He just like he's just called me Darshan.
So well, I think the reason he did it was just because Afromu did the stream of him and Doublelift would be streaming parallel, and then he would end up in a game with them, and they just yell Darshan, Darshan, and it was just great like comedy between the two of them where they just yell that all the time, and so it became a thing. And so I think he just decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna use my name for it.
Yeah, it's kind of like
He embraced the meme.
Everyone uses your name anyway.
Yeah, might as well. Like, also an interest, like, so Jensen, I didn't know his name was Jensen. I thought that Cloud9 got a new mid laner. I was like, good for you. You kind of needed it. And then I realized it's the same person, and I was like,
I feel like he was one of the stronger parts.
I don't know. I've always thought that Balls and Sneaky are weak when it comes to being in the actual like gameplay. So like when they go into working as a team, the two of them recently at least have seemed like they're kind of the weaker parts of the team. Even though Lemon kind of fucked up a lot last season, I would also watch the positioning that Lemon would end up in because he expected follow-up from other people, but I guess it was partially because he didn't call it out and be like, hey, follow me, and all that shit. But like, I've never liked either. Like, Balls, I thought was a good player a couple of years back. He was great, and even like the spring split, he wasn't terrible this last year. But then it came to the summer split, and it just seemed like he was the person they needed to bench the most. Like, Meteos, yeah, he had a wrong attitude and wasn't perfect for the role anymore. But of the people, Balls fell horribly. And then when they went to Korean boot camp, he was one of the only players that got stuck in the Korean Diamond 2, Diamond 1 area, and everybody else made it into Challenger eventually, even if they were in Diamond 1, Diamond 2, stuck for a while. He was the only player from North America that got stuck in that area. I mean,
I thought he was really bad for a while, but then after Worlds happened, I feel like he got back on his feet a little more.
I don't know. I feel like after this split...
Sneaky is actually their strongest player, next to Jensen.
So, I thought High was their strongest player, like, just because when he came back, the team stepped up. When he wasn't there, every person on that roster was playing like shit. Like, there was that fear that they were going to get relegated, that the team that was giving TSM a run for the number one in NA for so long was going to get relegated because they couldn't pull their shit together. And then High comes back, and they did it.
It wasn't because High's like actually a strong like player in terms of mechanically or anything. Though it's just that as soon as he came back, they were decisive again. Like if you watch the games when they still had Meteos, it seemed like half the team wanted to do one thing, and then the other half wasn't sure if they wanted to follow or not, which would just end up in a really bad situation for all of them.
Yeah.
As soon as High started playing, it didn't matter where High went or what one person wanted to do. As long as one person wanted to do it, the rest of the team was going to follow.
Yeah. So I felt that was always Sneaky's weakest point, is that he's never seemed decisive. In any of his play, he's never seemed decisive until somebody else steps up to make the call, to make him decisive. Like, I felt that's always been his weakest point, and that's why I've always thought that he's never been one of my favorite ADCs. He's never been towards, that top list for me. And I've never seen him as one of those top ADCs. A lot of people like to say he's one of the best in North America, and stat-wise he probably is, but overall I feel that there's so many others that make that decisive pick, that fully commit to stuff and get better rewards over it because they are decisive opposed to him.
Well, the biggest thing is, I think Sneaky actually is really decisive on what he wants to do. The biggest thing is Sneaky doesn't play like an ADC that is going to go in and try to murder people. He makes it, this is why I like the way he plays, he makes it really hard for the enemy team to decide what to do. Because Sneaky's never in a situation, or a majority of the time, he's never in a situation where he's risking something major to try to get a playoff, which makes it really hard for the other team to decide what they want to do. If that makes sense.
It does, but I feel like the counterpoint to it is because he's not taking these risks, he's not standing out as, that amazing player. He's sneaking by.
He's always close enough to be able to make a follow-up if he doesn't do anything, if his team goes in, but he's never close enough to where the enemy team can actually do anything to him. Like, those AD carries that you play against where it feels like they're doing nothing the whole game, but you never see them die, and you never see them do damage, or be the one initiating the damage on people. But it's really frustrating to play against them because it feels like they're not risking anything and getting a lot of reward out of it.
See, I don't play against those people because I'm kind of that type of player, and it pisses you off because I play that passively.
No, the difference is, he's in range to follow up regardless of what happens all the time, which is...
I'm there to follow up.
Really amazing.
I'm not gonna lie, I play very much like him, and that's probably why I dislike him. He's the better version of me. He's that better version of me, and I just dislike him for it. I guess that's probably the end-all be-all reason why.
That makes a little sense. But yeah, because he's so frustrating to play against because he's always close enough to follow up if you want to go and try to get him, but then he's never actually close enough to where you can actually get him.
See,
which is really annoying, and I think that's why a lot of people respect him as a player, because to have the patience to do that, to where there's a lot of plays where you could push forward and kind of get something out of it, but you're not. You have to do something risky to do that.
True.
And he has the patience to wait for that, and still make the other person annoyed because the other person wants to go in on him.
I see that. Freeze ends up becoming my favorite ADC in NA right now. He is my favorite. He was my favorite back in EU, primarily because he was on my favorite team, which got relegated. I was probably one of few fans that was yelling "Go Wolves" every week, and but Freeze always stood out as one of the few bright spots on that team. He showed that he was a good player, showed that he deserved to be probably on a better team than Copenhagen Wolves, or have a better team surround him at least. And yet, even with a poorly unified team as Copenhagen Wolves, he still showed that he was probably one of the best ADCs in EU last year. Like, my top 3 that I'd consider last year, even with his shit team, would be forgiven. Just overall, he's probably one of the best. I hate admitting it. He seems like such an arrogant player, but he has so much of a right to be when he has previously carried an entire team on his back to show them that he's the best. And then, like in that situation with SK, where he gets to the top with SK, even though that team just didn't have the people to actually do it. They focused so much into making sure that he won the game for them, that he was the best in the world for a little while. He had the best stats and everything in the world for a little while. Arguably the best in EU, not the world. Up there is Freeze, and another one being up there just based off of just performance, stats, and everything in EU would end up being Reckless. Even though I don't think he's one of the best, he plays for a name that's just as big as Cloud9 and plays to a similar style and ability as Sneaky, but he does take times where he is that person that does the initiation of damage that causes fights.
I think he's actually a bit different than Sneaky.
He has a similar playstyle a lot of the time. Like in laning phases, Sneaky, he plays very much the same. He's very reserved, very passive. He would always wait for Yellow Star to initiate something. Followed by, he was always that person that if he needed to go aggressive, he could be aggressive. He could do it on his own. He knew where to put himself. Like if he needed to make that play to potentially give his team a pivot point, so like he'd be the bait to set up a good team fight, or he'd go in and he'd get a pick which would then cause a team fight around him where he might die but his team still wins because of the bad positioning of the opposing team at this point. Like that's what I think made Reckless fit into that system so well, and why Sneaky fits into his system. Like in laning phase, they both make a very similar playstyle. They wait for their support to make that call, to make the decisive pick, and then they follow up to do something. But
I actually don't think it worked like that at all.
I think that's very much how it worked for, because you watch them with Yellowstar, right?
Yeah, okay, but the difference is, for the most part, I don't think Sneaky was passive in lane because Sneaky is a passive player. I think it's because of the fact that Lemon was actually a really big liability in lane because he was pretty bad in lane compared to Yellowstar, where Reckless knew that he could follow off. Like, if you watch a majority of the games I watched where Sneaky's laning, he actually plays really aggressively when the time is right. And whenever Lemon's there, they actually go really passive, not because they don't think they can, or they don't think that Sneaky can outplay them, but because Lemon doesn't have enough of a presence in the lane for Sneaky to do anything.
Okay, I'll grant you the reasons that they play very similar styles is probably different. But you have to say that at very similar times, they're both playing very similar styles, even if it is for different reasons.
In team fights, I feel like they're actually a lot different too, because I don't feel like Reckless is actually ever in that range most of the time, where they're a really annoying range. I think Reckless's thing is where he plays really safe a lot, and then you're right, he does bait them sometimes. But I think it works with his playstyle because of that too, because he plays really safe for a long time, so you think that he's just this guy that never gets caught out, and then he'll blatantly get himself caught out sometimes, to where they're thinking, well, he never gets caught out, so this is the one chance we have to catch him, but in reality he's baiting. Whereas most of the time he's actually not as far away from the team fights as Reckless is most of the time. He's a lot closer, but he's far enough to where he won't get hit.
Well, it's also what side of the fight that they're on. Reckless is generally up there in the front doing that bait, while Sneaky during the fight is going to be behind everybody waiting for somebody else to do the bait so he can follow in after CC's been used to do the damage. Reckless does the damage and then tries to bait them into his team.
I actually don't think that he doesn't do damage. Usually what happens is Sneaky hits the people that he can, which usually isn't...
I didn't say he doesn't do damage. He waits for the opportune time to do the damage, though.
Well, I think he's actually autoing the whole time most of the fights. It's just that he's autoing the people that aren't in the action. Like, if there's a fight that happens, Sneaky's usually hitting the people that he can kite, instead of having the camera follow, the guy getting kited by Sneaky. What happens is they have the camera on the assassins or whoever's doing a burst damage, which is not where Sneaky is during the fight.
Okay, well, their playstyles differ when they go into team fights. They have very similar laning phases, maybe for different reasons. So let's go back to the topic though of who we think is probably going to be that top ADC, who's going to be that outstanding ADC for this season, be it NA and EU, our top pick for both of them this season. Who do you think is going to be the standout player? Mine for North America, is going to be Freeze. I feel like the team that he's going into is going to fit his playstyle. He also has a much better team this split than the last one that he was a part of, which will allow him to be this outstanding player and showcase how good of a player he really is. As for EU, I'm probably giving this one... that one's a lot harder for me because I don't know who's going to do what, but I'm really going to lean more that Reckless is going to be the top player on this one just because everybody else is on such new teams. There's going to be so many roster changes everywhere else that this team is pretty much the same. I mean, he's getting a new support, but Noxiac is known to play a similar style to Yellowstar. Maybe not the same style, but close enough that I think it's comparable, that the two of them will work well together.
Is Forgiven on an EU team this season?
Forgiven is. I can't remember. Let me look which one he's on, because I know I saw it.
Fine. I don't know who I'd pick for you. I'm split between him and Neil, so then for NA I'm going with... I like, what's his name? CLG's new AD carry. I actually like him a lot. He reminds me kind of Sneaky, except he does a lot more. They're really annoying range. They're being just in the range where you want to go after him, but you know you can't.
Here, I'll tell you. Forgiven's on H2K.
Okay.
He-
Yeah, I like Forgiven.
So he doesn't have, like, H2K has almost a completely new roster this year.
Yeah. I saw
But I forgot, he does have Vander. So he is in contention just because I think Vander is probably one of the more prominent supports still there in EU outside of Kasing. But I'm still... Niels and Mithy showed case that they're really, really good and that Niels knows what to do in every team fight. But I don't know. I feel like Reckless is probably going to have actually more standout the year. This last couple splits, he's kind of been the sideline behind Febevin and Hooney. And now that they're not there, they're replacing Hooney with Gamsu. They're replacing Rainover with who I think is a better jungler in Spirit. I think Spirit is probably the stronger in comparison to the two of them. I feel like the weak point that Fnatic had came between either Hooney going on tilt, even though Hooney was generally one of the strong points. When Rainover couldn't assist him as much, Hooney became one of the stronger weak points on Fnatic. And so, like, the chemistry of the two of them might still work out on Immortals, but they don't have as... While their team looks really good, I don't think that the chemistry that the two of them built with the other team is going to kind of have a similar chemistry built as fast on the new team they're on. So, like, when you're going to talk about EU, I think Reckless might have an interesting time. I think Forgiven's going to have an interesting time when you're talking about ADCs. Niels might still fit in that same spot, but with all these shakeups, I think that the teams that are going to come out ahead are the ones that still have similar styles to what they went with last time. So replacing Expeke with somebody who's more aggressive and more that can make weird picks, I think is going to shake up how that team plays more, opposed to picking very similar playstyles but better players in position like how Fnatic did. They got people that played very similar to the last team but are potentially better than who they were, except for Noxiec. I think the rest is probably comparable.
As far as who I think for the ADC stuff, I think that a lot of with all the roster changes that have happened coming into this year, I think it's kind of hard to tell, but I will say that I think that the ADC that's gonna like shine the most is gonna show up like possibly be the person for their team. I think would be Freeze. But I think that Double Lift on TSM might overall have like a better record, but that's just because I think TSM will be a stronger team. As far as EU, I don't know that much. Forgiven wouldn't be a bad pick, but I guess I'll have to see.
I feel like Double Lift's gonna tilt me so much this season. I like TSM, but I actually don't. I like Double Lift, but at the same time, it's really hard to watch him sometimes when he like does certain plays. Like I really like him. I really like watching him, but sometimes when he does really bad stuff, I don't know what to think.
Yeah.
See, what I'm hoping to happen is that TSM flounders the spring split, so they do another roster change for some stupid reason, or Yellowstar leaves the team, and then Renegade sees this and replaces Rumilia with Yellowstar just to have Freeze and Yellowstar in the same lane. I think would just be fucking phenomenal. I think that would just be an amazing lane to see.
I kind of want to see how Remy goes.
I'm intrigued because she's such a good Thresh, but based off of other stuff, she doesn't seem to be as proficient with as many other champions. She has a very kind of narrow pool. She's really, really good with that narrow pool, but I feel that's going to be a problem for them if they decide to, just start banning a few of her stuff to kind of weaken that lane.
Yeah. No, I always love seeing good always love when a support is really good at Thresh in particular, because you just end up with like so many just highlight plays just from like lanterns or hooks or whatever. Like the couple of highlights that came with X Special, like him denying St. Vicious on J4 with Flay like all the time, every time he went in.
My favorite one of X Special is where he goes for a hook he misses. He then flashes in to flay the wrong direction and misses the flay. Like, that is my favorite X Special video because it was on the highlight reel for like 5 weeks in a row of just like shit that went down and went bad. Like, it was just so great. I feel like this split's going to be really interesting. The NA scene is probably going to be hyper competitive because there's so many stacked rosters. As to the EU scene, the rosters all seem really strong still, and maybe some of the new ones are pretty strong too. But there's a few teams with players that nobody's ever fucking heard of on them that just seem like they don't have anybody that anybody knows. So it looks like they're just going to be, they're going to be the ones replaced by Copenhagen Wolves this coming split, or whoever takes the cake. But like, EU is going to be weird. I think there's just going to be like 3 teams that do well in EU, and everybody else is just going to be like trying to get to being good, but they're all going to play like giants where they're just kind of eh. Every now and then they're good, and most of the time they're just meh.
Mm-hmm.
And then NA is just going to be a much closer scene. Like, there's not a team on NA that I don't think has potential to be first this split.
Yeah, I think they're all really good. I think the biggest thing is whether or not, or who's going to be hot like near the beginning of the season, and then who gets kind of hot at the end of the season, which will decide where everyone places.
Like,
I really hope that with like the greater focus on ADC development this season, I really hope that, I mean, along with all the focus on ADCs, I really hope that we see a lot more like support plays. I mean, that's just me talking as a support main, but I've really always loved seeing highlights that where support players just, go above and beyond. Like, there was a couple of highlights last season of Afro that were just awesome, like him on Blitz and him on Alistar.
so I want to see more Anivia in NA now that Froggen's here and Anivia's good. I want to see Anivia coming out. Like, I feel like this is just going to be the split to see, all these different off-meta picks, or what are once considered off-meta picks coming in, just because there's just such a jamboree of people here. We have people from Southeast Asia, we have people from Korea, we have people from EU, we have people from Canada, which isn't anything new. We have, I think there was one new Filipino player as well, outside of X-Smithy being Filipino. Like, we're getting people from all over the place now filling in slots in NA, and it's just kind of becoming that melting pot of where everybody who's good wants to go because the pay's better. So it's going to become a much more fun scene to watch than, somewhere that's just stupidly competitive like LCK, where it's kind of cool to watch, but the best of twos kind of negate how cool it is over there. I mean...
Yeah, no, I hear you. The entertainment value is slightly better when you have the off-meta stuff. Like, what was it, like last season, a lot of players you would, love to do, the hover teases, Like, back when Bard was first out, everybody did the Bard hover to get the crowd riled up.
And then the Lust Boy locked it in one game, and everybody was just utterly shocked.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. I want to see some people just pick some crazy off-meta shit in LCS. I want to see, crazy bans, crazy picks, just... ridiculous entertainment value. I don't care if we go to Worlds.
How much you want to bet, though, that in EU we see a Nocturne mid again?
Dude, I fucking want, Hecarim and Urgot mid again. Who was that? Keen? Keen did that?
Yeah.
it was Keen.
Yeah, where's Keen now?
His team's gone. Gravity got their spot got bought out by Echo Fox?
Yeah.
No, I know that. Okay, yeah. Well, I knew Gravity was gone. I just didn't know if Keen had gone to a different team or not.
There wasn't a team that needed it. Everybody else had such good mid laners and pickups for mid lane. There wasn't anybody for him to go to.
Fair enough.
Everybody proved themselves last split, and the new teams picked up new players from different areas. So another thing that I'm finding interesting is I'm on that Meet the LCS whatever. I'm looking at all the interesting things from the teams, like Rush is the reigning NA LCS MVP. Or Zion Spartan renamed to Darshan. And then you go down to Echo Fox. One of them is Froggen, previously played in EU LCS for Elements. The other thing is Echo Fox is owned by 3-time NBA champion Rick Fox. It's the only one that mentions the owner just because it's so odd seeing that there's somebody that didn't like have anywhere near a name for League of Legends just decide I'm buying the League of Legends team.
Hey man, I'm down for it. There's been a lot of like celebrities, old-time celebrities, like putting their money in on sports teams. Like who was it? There's that new soccer league over in California, and gosh, who was it? Some like old actor, big time, like very famous, but he like bought a team. So like it's cool to see quote unquote celebrities sort of spend their money like this. Also, I'm really hoping for like nothing but basketball puns every Echo Fox game.
God, it's gonna happen. It's going to happen.
I want to see who is it? Froggen? I want to see Froggen playing Xerath and kill someone with an ult, and I want to hear Freak say nothing but net or something.
No, it'd be KFO playing Darius, and he'd do the dunk, and he's like nothing. Yeah. Or Freak would make a Fox reference and just be like, "What does the Fox say?" Like after, like in a very clever spot after somebody did something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's wrap this all up. I want to hear your guys' top 3 team picks for NA and EU.
I'll go first. NA. I'm gonna say, are we doing like 1, 2, and 3, or just like the
Yeah,
3?
1, 2, 3.
Okay. 1, I'm gonna go with TSM. 2, I'm gonna go with, I want to say Cloud9, and 3, I'm gonna go with Immortals. But I want CLG to win.
What about you? What about EU?
Okay.
So let's go with EU there. What's your EU picks there, Blitz?
EU. I don't know. I'll put Fnatic at 1. H2K at 2, and I don't know that much. Let's go with Roccat at 3.
Interesting picks. All right, Sarc.
For NA,
Yeah.
I got CSM, Cloud9, and I'm actually gonna have CLG up there.
Wow, interesting picks.
And then for Europe, Fnatic for sure, Origin, and I don't know who would be there for the third team.
Sarcasm man after my own heart, picking CLG.
Your
I
third.
honestly don't even know.
Go with H2K. That has Forgiven on it.
Yeah, I think H2K might be the other option, only because I feel like the other team have like too many major flaws in their rosters.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be the only one that's fanboyish and gonna put my favorite team in the top 3. They're not gonna be number 1 though, because I don't think they're gonna be there. But number 1, I'm going Immortals, even though I feel there's gonna be so much chemistry error between the fact that the bot lane's not as strong as Fnatic was, so Huni and Rainover don't have them to fall back on. The mid laner is still pretty damn good. I mean, Pob has had his issues, but I mean, he can do it. I'm putting Immortals number 1. Number 2, TSM. Just because it's TSM, I feel like they're going to do something that's going to fuck up them getting number 1. And it's the first time that they don't have Dyrus on the team, so they're not getting a number 1. And then I'm going to toss Renegades in there. Even though they're a new team, even though they have a new ADC that they haven't really practiced as much with, I still feel they have the potential to be number 3. It's going to be close no matter what, so I mean, or I feel this split should be close no matter what for NA, and I don't know. I'm just going to put my favorite up there just because, might as well be a fanboy. As for EU, I'm going to put Origen as top. I like Origen better than Fnatic. They still have that strong roster, even though I don't think Niels is going to be, number 1 ADC EU, and I think some reason I have the feeling that Reckless is going to do it this split. I think Origen as a team is still better than everybody else. But Fnatic is a close number 2. So Fnatic's going to be number 2 with potential chance of me, feeling that there might be a switch between the two of them somewhere in the season. As for number 3, it's all up in the air, but H2K has Forgiven, and I'm just going to give them, just because they have Forgiven, I think they're going to pull what SK did last spring split, which was let Forgiven win for the team. Vitality, while they have a nice roster, and I really love Kasing as a support, I can't stand behind them enough to actually warrant it. When Jankos, Vander, Forgiven are all on a team together, and they have Ryu as their mid, I can't remember who their top laner is. Oduwamne, I want to say? Oduwamne? Like, that roster just seems so sound and fits together so well. Like, everybody on there is a very support-style player, except for Forgiven and Jankos is always a secondary carry. So I just feel like that roster is just stronger than all the rest of the other rosters outside of the two that I mentioned prior. But as for this episode, we've been talking for a while now, and I'm going to wrap everything up. I'm going to say thank you for anybody that listens to this. A lot of this was just babble and talk of, fans of the LCS and such. I want to say if you wish to follow, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, do all that stuff. My Facebook, my Twitter, and my... what's the other thing I put in there usually? Twitch account. Wow, couldn't think of it. Will all be in the description, along with a link to Sarcasm's YouTube channel. For any of you that liked his comments and liked his commentary, go watch some of his videos out there as well. Thank you all for watching.